Hey guys, we're live. I'm Jeff with eBay Addicts, and today my guest is eBliss Reseller Solutions. How are you guys doing today?
Good, Jeff.
Very good, thanks.
How you doing? Thanks for having us on again. Good afternoon
Hey,
to you.
awesome. Thanks for coming on today. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience. I'm going to try to put you on full screen so they can see you better. There we go.
There you go.
So, there we are. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience in case they don't know who you are.
Sure. We are Dave and Lori Bilyeu. We run eBliss Reseller Solutions, which is a new third-party fulfillment service that we just launched last fall for resellers that sell on eBay and other platforms who sell mostly thrifted items, one-off thrifted items. So, and in addition to that, we do have our own eBay business we've had since about 2013, which is full-time for us. And we do used electronics on those accounts.
Okay, awesome. And so you guys are basically your full-time resellers, but you also have I guess you would call it like a warehouse and distribution center where you have a hub. I guess it would be similar to Amazon FBA where you box other sellers' items up and basically hold it for them in a holding cell. And then whatever they're ready to sell, you box it up and ship it off to the to the customer, correct? Is that correct so far?
Exactly. Yeah. Right. That's exactly right. It's considered third-party fulfillment. So we store and ship items for other sellers that are very similar to us. And the reason why we launched this is because we found that there are so many sellers who get tripped up with their space and their time when it comes to shipping. A lot of resellers want to do this as a side hustle, and they quickly find that it's very lucrative and it's a very fun thing for them to do, but they run into problems when they don't have enough space to store their items. And so their business kind of outgrows their own surroundings. So we figured, we have developed really good processes, and we ship about 10,000 items ourselves every year through our own business. And so we said, well, what if we offered this service to others? And that's what we developed eBliss Reseller Solutions for.
Okay, awesome. And so, so you guys recently expanded your space as well. You want to talk a little bit about that because you kind of expanded and got a new warehouse recently.
Yeah, thankfully we're in a half an hour south of Denver, and we have access to a lot of warehouse square footage in where we're located. So we did expand. We're just over 6,000 square feet right now, and it's the challenge for resellers is making that leap into getting that space. Many resellers use their spare bedroom or their basement, and they quickly grow out of it. So the next step is for them to usually jump into a storage unit. And then what happens at that point is you just turned your reselling business into a commute every day, picking up the packages, et cetera. So we made the commitment to really go into a warehouse space with our reselling business a couple of years ago, and it was a big commitment. It was an extra $3,000 a month, as many resellers understand. And but we saw the potential. We saw that the growth that was available to us. We enjoy working with each other, and reselling's it's a blast. I look at it as a game, but it really pays the bills. And we know that by dealing with other resellers out there, we knew that they face these struggles, and that's why we created eBliss to allow them to not have to make that huge investment up front when growing.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually just talking about that today earlier is that, as a reseller, you're going to run into one of three choke points in your reselling business. Either you're not going to have enough hours in a day, you're going to run out of capital to invest in your business, or you're going to run out of space. At some point in time, you're going to encounter one of those three issues. And what you guys do is you actually help give the reseller more free time where instead of them having to catalog other items and worry about the logistics of packing and shipping and all that, you guys can kind of outsource that part of their business to you, and as well as also they're freeing up space. So they're able to alleviate 2 out of the 3 problems that they're going to encounter as a reseller by doing business with you guys. So kind of talk to me about how has your business grown in the past year or so, and how long have you guys been in business as a third party like logistics? Kind of talk to me a little bit about that.
Right. Well, we just launched last October. So really, it hasn't even been a full year, but that was after over 2 years of very thorough research and development on how to transfer our own processes that we do for our own business to do that for others. Because as you can imagine, there's quite a lot of moving parts to the entire system. So we spent a lot of time testing it. We had a lot of beta testers. We just started out very small with just a few clients. But in the last couple months, we have seen it grow pretty much now that we have the space. Before, we were limited to the space because most of that space was being taken up by our existing business. So it was imperative that we got additional warehouse space so we could get additional clients. And now that we have that, we are onboarding probably about an average at least one a week for the last couple of weeks, and have more in the work. So hopefully the warehouse space gets filled pretty quickly, and then we'll need another warehouse, so that'll be a good problem to have. But right now, we're just taking it one step at a time, and enjoying the process of meeting these new sellers and helping them getting their time and space back. A lot of our sellers actually are RVers, like travelers, like they travel the country in their RVs, and this was really, for them to maintain their business the way it was before was almost impossible based on what they sold. This way they don't have to skip a beat. They can sell the shoes and the kind of more bulky things. They don't have to limit themselves to things that will fit in their travel trailer behind their RV. So but in addition to that, we have so many different kinds of clients, from full-timers who already have a warehouse and they want to streamline their operations as well, and they don't want employees anymore, to just side hustlers who sell on Poshmark and eBay, and they just don't. They work full time elsewhere, and they don't have the time to worry about shipping, and they don't have the space to put all these things that they want to sell. And as you know, most people have death piles, and they're always like, "Well, I want to send you all my stuff, and I'm going to grow." And that's what we want. We want them to grow their businesses, not just be stagnant.
Right. So can you kind of go, you guys are now, as you guys can read the title, the eBliss Reseller Solutions are now taking on new clients. They're accepting new clients that you guys are going to be doing business with. So kind of take me behind the curtains, take me behind the scenes, and kind of tell me what it is that you guys offer. And if they're interested in getting started, what is the steps of the process of how they can get started?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like you've heard of the phrase from the movie, "Build it and they will come." Well, that was always a struggle with us. We wanted to have the warehouse first and then fill it up, but we really had to be methodical in how we presented our offering, because we didn't want to overpromise and underdeliver. It was very important. And the marketing we've been doing has strictly really been through social media, very selectively, and also word of mouth. A lot of our clients are referring other resellers that they know. So the process is, now that we have more square footage of empty warehouse space that we could fill up, we speak to any potential client one-on-one prior to even bringing them on, and I don't want to use the word vet, but we kind of discuss what their goals are as a reseller. We definitely want resellers who are experienced, have been on some platforms for close to a year, let's just say, and have over 200 to 300 listings. And the reason being is we want them to demonstrate that they're serious about their reselling business. And it doesn't matter if they're part-time, full-time, side hustle. It doesn't matter to us. We just want to make sure that we're a good fit for them. And so we spend a few I would say weeks, having calls and discussing their business and making sure that it's a good match. It's not all, with reselling, as you know, Jeff, it's not all about oh, I have to scale my business. I want to scale my business. I want more money. It really comes down to restoring the joy in being a reseller. Many of us that began as resellers, it began almost as a hobby or by accident. And it was so much fun for most of us to treasure hunt, find that value, then sell it. And we were all hooked. Every single guest on your show seems to share the same story. And we want to restore that joy for every reseller that we bring on board that is burdened with the mundane tasks of doing daily shipping and not having the freedom to take a week or two off, go on vacation. And so we're excited to meet all different types of resellers, regardless if you're full-time, part-time, or side hustler.
Okay, awesome. We're live. So let me catch a few people in the chat. I'm going to say hello to a few people in the chat to stop by today. We have We have Keith is here in the chat, says hello, everyone. We have Hollywood Reseller here. He says hello. We have the Lone Star Picker here. He says, I saw Huey Lewis in the news like 3 or 4 times. And he says, hello, everybody. And we have Hollywood Reseller here. He has a quick question for you. He wants to know, do you guys ship 7 days a week?
On the eBliss side, we actually don't right now because we just don't have the volume yet to warrant that. But on our other business, our regular eBay, we do ship 7 days a week. But that will change with eBliss as we grow and it becomes necessary to ship every day.
Okay, cool. We have a question here from the Lone Star Picker. He says, how does a disorganized reseller get it together and start this process? If there are many moving parts, what do you suggest for them or a new reseller to get the ball rolling? Do you have any hints or etc.? So what you guys offer is a process of they can send all their items in through FedEx and send it into your distribution center, to your warehouse. And then you guys have these like clear plastic bins, I would say, right? And then you store the items for the customer. And then whenever they sell, you would go to, let's say, B225 or whatever, and you would go pull that item and then box it up and ship it out. Is that correct so far?
That's the gist of it. I mean, to answer the question, any reseller, as whether they're big or small, always has to have some sort of system. I think from the beginning, even if it's simple, but they have to start somewhere. 50 items, you can find 50 items pretty easily, but once that 50 items become 150 or 250, then it becomes a challenge to find things easily if you don't have a system. So starting from the beginning with something very simple as just making sure that you've identified the item you're selling to the listing to the actual location of wherever you're putting that item. So like you mentioned, we do have a bin system. It's everything is in plastic totes that are covered. And each bin has a label on them so that we do know what it is. And each bin is actually specifically for each client. So there's never any commingling of inventory for our clients. So because that would be a disaster. So, I mean, being naturally organized obviously helps. But if you aren't naturally organized, then you just have to break down your business to say, this is how I list things, this is where I list them, and this is how I find them when they sell. It's literally those 3 components. And if you can kind of tackle that in some way that works for you, and every reseller has their own way of doing it, that's what you really need. I mean, our service provides a way to do that offsite for you. You know, how obviously it's not with you. But our system is very simple. We have SKU stickers. So the SKU number is put into the custom field of your listing, and that is connected to the location so that when it sells, we can pick the right item and ship it for you.
Okay, awesome. So I wanted to ask you guys a question. Could you talk a little bit about what fees or costs it would start? Like what cost would let's say I have an eBay store and I want to onboard with you guys. What would be the startup cost for me if I called you up and I said, hey, I'm interested in sending in a shipment of items in? Explain the process and what would be like the cost and fees associated with that? Because you guys actually cover the shipping to have the items shipped to your warehouse, correct?
Right.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Honestly, the upfront costs are nothing. We provide all the materials, supplies, and the cost to get your items. We call it onboarding. Everything you already have listed on your platforms, we pay to get into our warehouse. Then there is an ongoing cost every time you send something in. We call it receiving. There's a monthly storage cost for whatever you have in our warehouse. And then there's a shipping cost for pick, packing, shipping when it sells. But the process would be, we would have, like Dave mentioned, we always like to have a conversation with these potential clients to find out if we are a good fit, because sometimes we're not. To be honest, sometimes the situation just doesn't make sense for either party. And we wouldn't want for either of us to go through this process without knowing that it was probably going to be something that was going to work for both of us. So that's where we have these Zoom calls. You can schedule a Zoom call or a phone call, or if you're local, an in-person meeting through our website. And that's like the first step. We really need to find out about your business, what it entails, what your goals are, what your pain points are, that sort of thing, to find out if our service will help you out.
Yeah, and just to let you know, Jeff, just to simplify it, for each item, it really comes down to how long it's stored with us is going to be the variable. If you have a long tail item, it could cost upwards of maybe $10. But most of the average cost from start to finish per item is typically around $5 to $6, and that includes us, getting it to getting your items to us. Then we push them live on the platforms that you are on, and that's the storage, and that's the picking and the packing, the fulfillment side. So, yes, it is going to be an extra cost to many resellers. But as you know, most resellers are solopreneurs. They're doing everything themselves. Their labor is free. And even though most resellers probably work 60 to 80 hours a week, there comes a point where it's like they have to start relinquishing or delegating some of these mundane tasks that aren't necessarily revenue producing. All resellers have a skill. They have it in their brain. They know how to spot value. That's their skill. That's their passion. And that's what we want to allow them to do, is just restore that joy in going out there and growing their business if they choose to do so, or just focusing on the revenue producing activities such as sourcing and listing.
Okay, awesome. If you guys in the chat have any questions for our guests, go ahead and drop it in the chat. I wanted to say hello to the Cap guy. He says he has 3,900 items listed, the system, but a wide variety of items. And I wanted to say hello to the Lone Star Picker. He says, yeah, a good reseller would need to find out, vice versa. Depends on the business model and items, etc. So if you guys don't mind, I wanted to talk to you a few minutes about, because you guys are also full-time resellers as well. You have your own resale business. And I think you said you have like over 4,000 items active listed on eBay at the moment. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? I'm just curious, how long you guys have been full-time resellers, and then how kind of talk about how your transition was, where you're like, hey, we're doing well in our own business, and kind of what led you to the point where you're like, hey, let's start our own kind of, business on the side to create this eBliss reseller solution. So can you kind of talk to me a little bit about that?
Sure. Dave started on eBay completely by himself on like a side hustler, total part-time sort of thing. And he actually, believe it or not, started out in outerwear, like ski clothes and things like that. There's plenty of that out here in Colorado. And then, he built a business up pretty much by himself, up to the point where it was almost like a full-time business for him, but he still needed help at that point. He hired a teenager to help him list and ship. But then I looked at what he was doing and I said, if it's just a numbers game, what if I added myself to the mix and I helped you ship and I helped you list and pick and source and everything. And so that's what we did. We essentially doubled our labor at that point, but we realized as well at that point, we still had a bandwidth, max and limit. We couldn't do everything. We didn't want to be working 80 hours a week ourselves and constantly being tied to that shipping timetable every day, since we do 1 day shipping. So at that point, I don't remember how many items we had. We probably, when I joined him, I think we probably only had like maybe 1,200, 1,400, something like that. And over the next 2 years, we hired 2 part-time people to help us list and ship so that we sourced all the time and were able to source a lot of items and really grow the business up to where it is now. That was 2017. So it's been about 3 years or so that, we've just built it up to this point. Now we have, employees who do all the shipping, do all the listing, do all the processing of our items, because that's another element of what we do. Because we sell used electronics, there's more to that part of the process than just, saying, oh, this is a shirt, is there a hole or a stain or something like that. We have to actually test things and make sure they have all their components and that sort of thing. So we actually have a processor who does that too. So there's a lot to it, but you're right. We have almost 4,000 individually listed, thrifted, used electronics. They're not all electronics. We do anything that really is going to, have a good selling history on eBay that makes sense to ship. We do some big stuff. We don't love the big stuff, but that's where the money is sometimes. So you got to take that when you find it. But yeah, it's just, and so then to answer your question, it just became, it was so much fun doing this together. We've been married 25 years, been together 30 years. and it's the first time we ever owned a business together, even though we've worked together in the past. It was just a natural progression, I think, of, we've built this up, we've got these systems and processes and things are going really well. And then we realized, if you look around, there really isn't a lot of good viable options for resellers who sell one-off items to have somebody else store and ship them for you. So that's where, we figured we'll do it.
Yeah, we did explore other 3PLs, that's third-party logistics companies, and none of them really would, they weren't receptive to those that sold those, as Lori mentioned, those one-off SKUs. Many resellers are selling pre-owned used items, which is great. They're motivated to get these. They're inexpensive, and it's a great market to get into. So we knew that the Amazon FBA model was very appealing. Everyone loves to just get the items, just get them listed, ship the items off, and then wait for them to sell, and the funds and the sales proceeds trickle in. We knew that it was very appealing for many people. So that's why we recreated eBliss, almost similar to Amazon FBA, except we are paying for the inbound shipping, and the client pays for the shipping label, as opposed to Amazon FBA, where the client pays for the inbound shipping of the freight or boxes, whatever you want to call it, and then Amazon pays for that shipping label. So it's kind of just the opposite, but we've ran our numbers, and we are the same, if not lower, than Amazon FBA. We are not tied. Our fees are not tied to the price of what something sells for. So our fees are fixed, and they're easily manageable from our client standpoint. So they know that they're not under the gun to move it, or they're going to get hit with surcharges, et cetera.
Okay, cool. We have a question here from the Cap Guy. He wants to know, how many customers do you currently have now, and items you hold to ship? I guess he wants to know, like, what is the volume, number of items that you currently have, like, in your warehouse, and he wants to know how many customers you have right now.
Yeah, we're approaching 30 right now, and the first couple months, even though we launched in October, the first couple months were very slow, as you can imagine. This is our first real business venture outside of our reselling business. So marketing, if you think about it, marketing is new to many resellers, many people, because you have to really invest in getting the word out and also gaining trust. So we did have a handful of clients that were beta testers with us for a while. Some of them stayed on board, some of them didn't. And where we are now, believe it or not, we ramped up. We reached out to a few influencers, also on Poshmark, and we had a lot of spike in customers with that size. Now, the average client size, just to let the viewers know, we're looking at people that have typically close to 500 listings or above, and are plateauing. They're running out of space and time. So we're going to be very methodical in how we grow eBliss. We're not going to just bring anyone on that we could not service the equivalent of the way we service our own reselling business. So it's a slow process, but we're grateful and pleased at where we are right now after, I can't even do the math, just under 8 months.
Yeah, guys, if you guys haven't done research like I have lately, if you went online, just typed it in on Craigslist and just typed it in, like, if you wanted to hypothetically get your own warehouse distribution center, and like where I'm at, for example, in Florida, I just looked the other day, and I mean, it was $2,000 to $3,000 a month for me to rent my own warehouse, and that didn't count water, electric, any other expenses, grass being cut, and then they recently passed a law here in Florida where they just voted for the minimum wage to be $15 an hour. So it's like, if I was to try to recreate that myself, and I was trying to do that in my own backyard here in Florida, like I said, they just voted to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. You'd be looking at $2,000 to $3,000 a month for a fee for a warehouse, plus all the other logistics things that you would have to cover as far as any type of the grass being cut, water, electric, all the other expenses that would go along with it, and not counting having to pay, employees and I'm trying to remember. You use the word. I don't know what it's called. When an employee or somebody gets hurt on your property, what is that called? Like workman's comp or something? Or yeah. So you have all these extra things that's like in your peripheral that you don't even think about. That could happen. That people could get hurt on your property, or all kind of crazy things like that. So if this is something you guys are interested in, I have all their links down below to their website, Instagram, and YouTube down below. Let me say hello to a few people here in the chat real quick. Mo is here from the Reseller Niche. He says, "Hey, Jeff, eBay Addicts. Hey, thank you guys for coming by and hanging out. I wanted to say hello to Cali Reseller Louise is in the chat. We have a question here from the Hollywood Reseller. He says, do you have any items in mind that you would recommend for sellers to stay away from?
Generally speaking, or with eBliss specifically, I'm not sure.
I think he was talking about earlier, asking a question about your own personal reselling business.
Well, I mean, that it really depends on the individual within your reselling business. Just to let you know, with eBliss, we do have a size and a weight limitation. We don't take golf clubs or big, large, heavy items. We restrict it to 6 items that are 6 pounds and below, and typically fit within a 14 by 20 inch Ziploc bag. And we provide all those materials for you. Just want to say hi to Luisa for chiming in. I watched him 2 weeks ago, and it was pretty. He said something very good that resonated. He learned from his father, and he likes to get his son involved. And that's the joy of having your own business, especially in reselling. You can incorporate your entire family. And, Lori and I being married for 25 years, it's something special to do it with your family. So I want to say thank you to Luis for that interview the other week.
Okay, awesome. So I wanted to ask you guys a question since we have you on the show. Do you have any tips or tricks or any advice, because you guys are full-time resellers, that you could impart to help other resellers? If I came to you and I said, hey, Dave and Lori, I'm doing this resell business, and I may be doing it part-time out of my garage. I'm starting this business, whether I do business with you or not. I just wanted to know if you could give us maybe 2 or 3 tips or tricks that would help somebody if they're watching right now. If they're like, hey, I would like to grow and scale my business, I would like to make more money on eBay, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, 2 things come to my mind. The first one is to not operate in a vacuum. But if they're on, if they're watching you, they're obviously not doing that. But a lot of resellers don't realize that there is an actual community out there, and there's all sorts of other people doing exactly what they do. And you can learn from them, and you can learn to not make the same mistakes they did. You can learn how to do things differently. So whether it's Facebook groups or YouTubes like this to watch, or even to literally go to meetups. The eBay really promotes a lot of, getting together with other resellers, hopefully in person soon, but right for the last year, it's been on Zoom. There's tons of meetups that you could join over the entire country at any time, and just get information and connect with other people, and just to not be a reseller in a vacuum, because that's really a lonely place. The second thing I would just say is also, even if you're small, you need to know your business from a number standpoint. It's not necessarily accounting, even though that's important too. You need to know what your sales are and what your average selling price is, and your inventory turnover rate and things like that, so that you can have a good understanding of what your business looks like, so that you can make decisions, whether it's purchasing decision or policy decisions according to what you're doing. And you can make changes on the fly if things aren't going well. So I think that's one thing a lot of resellers miss. They just sell and buy and ship, and they forget that there, at the end of the day, there is a business in this, whether it's a full-time business, part-time, it is still a business that you need to have vital information about in order to understand it really well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add also, Lori is correct, that I was of that cut where I was just doing it. I knew I was making money. I just didn't know how much. And I didn't know my numbers as well, because frankly, it was a little bit boring. It wasn't exciting to me to know my, inventory turnover rate or my average selling price. All I knew is I was flipping things and making money, and it was great. I loved it. But the one thing I wanted to add is, I think what really hit home with me is realizing that I had to delegate responsibilities. I couldn't do it all, even though you can. I just knew to kind of take it to the next level and also reclaim some of my time and freedom, I needed to really outsource, which, is the same thing as delegating. And that was bringing in someone to help me list and help me ship. And the one challenge with that many resellers have is, hey, I'm doing everything myself, and I'm selling stuff, buying things and selling it for $100, and I'm putting 40 in my pocket or 50, whatever. It will cut into your margins. There's no doubt about it. But your time is valuable, and you need to really understand that time runs out eventually. And so the sooner you invest in your business and delegate some of the mundane, costly, time sucking, I should say, tasks, it'll become a rewarding, call it a job or an endeavor as a reseller.
Okay, yeah, we were just talking about that earlier. Is that everybody only has 24 hours in a day. So if you're spending more time packing and also running around hunting and pecking, looking for orders of items that sold, and you're walking around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to find this one item for 30 minutes, and it's here somewhere, you just don't know where you placed it at. So I know I've been there before myself, and I'm like, it's in the stack here somewhere. I know it's in the stack. We're gonna find it. You're having like a little Easter egg looking for your items that sold. But as far as talking about your time, you said that some of your customers that you guys have been able to, instead of spending so much time packing and shipping and all that, they have this extra free time. They can go out and source more. And because they have this extra free time to go out and source more and maybe hit up more yard sales and more thrift stores, they're actually able to generate and make more sales because they're bringing more items into their
Yep, I think we heard you loud and clear. I think I know what you're going to ask. Most of our clients, just to let the listeners know, most of our clients had spent before coming to us around 5 hours a week picking, packing, shipping, taking their packages to USPS, etc. That's 5 hours a week. That's 20 hours a month. And many of them say, we always ask, well, how much could you source an hour at your rate? And most of them say anywhere from $150 to $200 in eBay value an hour when they go out to the thrift stores, the bins, wherever. And that's a smart reseller. That's somebody who has a lot of skill. So if you do the math, if I did that in my head right now, that would be, I can't even do that. You multiply the 5 hours a week times the 200, that's an extra $1,000 a week in eBay value that you're able to list now. That's $4,000 extra a month in eBay value you could list. And not only that, you're enjoying that because that's the fun part of your business. So you're going from the time-sucking, mundane, picking, packing, shipping, which I don't know many people who like that, maybe one or two, but to the fun part of transferring that 5 hours a week to the front end. And it really turns out to be worthwhile for them. A lot of them see the value.
Okay, cool. We had a question here in the chat from Jim's Closet Jim. She wants to know, how do you two overcome disagreements with decisions in your business?
That's a good question.
We have typically one disagreement once every quarter. It's just so odd. It's like one day a quarter. We're just like, it's a marriage thing. It has nothing to do with business. But it's, we have obviously similar values, but Lori is a different personality than I am. Her strengths are in organization and management. Mine are more on the personal, on the business and the growth strategy. So we kind of complement each other with our strengths, and that's the fun part about it. I think if we were too similar, we would have more problems.
Right. But the fact that we are married, I think, believe it or not, makes the business partnership easier. We say that all the time because we have to deal with conflict regularly, personally. So dealing with conflict or disagreements or whatever in the business should be no different. really. And like Dave said, we're very different in our personalities, but we both have the same goals and the same vision, and we want the same thing. And so it's just a matter of coming to an agreement about how to make that happen. So actually, believe it or not, most people always say, "Oh, I could never work with my spouse." Oh, that type of. I think it makes it actually even easier to have a business partner, because I couldn't imagine if we weren't married, it would be even harder to be able to get through those types of things.
That was definitely a good question. That's not the first time we heard that either, but definitely a good question.
Okay, cool. I wanted to ask you guys a question about the eBliss solutions business that you guys have. Can you talk to me about how the process works? So we contact you, we set up an appointment, we do a live stream chat, we set up an appointment to talk with you. Things go well from that point, and then you said you give them all the plastic bags, boxes, everything that they need, and then they'll send a shipment into FedEx. And then what happens from that point after that?
After they've completely onboarded their existing inventory, you mean?
Yeah, like they've contacted you, they set up an appointment, you guys are on the same page as far as them shipping in their items. So let's say they have 500 or 1,000 items, they want to send it into your warehouse. What happens from that point on? Do they when they get the bags, do they have to write the SKUs and the tickets on the bags? Like, explain the process of how this works. If you could kind of elaborate how it works.
Sure. The process is pretty simple. Even though with cross posting, it can be a little bit complicated. You have to just manage that pretty well. Each bag it should equate to a listing on your primary platform, and it's either eBay or Poshmark, whichever one you do the most business on. That's the one we're going to use to receive your items at any given time. And so each bag has you put a SKU sticker on it, so it's a specific number that you will put in the custom field of your listing, so that listing and that item are connected. So, and that's basically all you need to do, very simply, to send in the items. Once we get them, we will add information to that SKU to say who received it on what day and where it is located in our warehouse. Yeah. And so then on an ongoing basis, obviously, as you sell things, you will want to replenish those, because otherwise eventually your business you won't have any inventory. So the sellers, then our clients, will then send in, I guess you would call it, new listings at a regular interval that they choose, whatever works for them on a regular basis. Some people send in 25 things a week, some send in 50. It depends on what their business looks like. Some sellers are actually in growth mode. They want to send in more items than they're selling to build up their inventory. That's fine too. As long as they give us the heads up that it's coming, we'll be able to receive those within 24 to 48 hours of being received in our warehouse.
Yeah, and just to share, Jeff, we provide all of our clients with all the material, as Lori mentioned, the boxes to get them sent into us, the bags to put their items in, the SKU stickers, etc. We also have an arrangement. We're actually working with UPS now, so we're transferring over to UPS, and UPS will have it where you could just put your these boxes right outside your door, your porch, in front of your garage. They will pick them up within 12 to actually
potentially the same day
from your house, and ship them into us. So that it's not like you have to worry about hauling all your inventory down to a UPS store and dropping them off. We have it so UPS will come right to your residence and pick them up.
But if you don't want that, you can always drop it off at a UPS store.
Okay, and so the client, they would still go about their normal, regular routine as far as sourcing items. Then they would go home and list them themselves. And then once they had a good pile of items listed, whether it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, you have people that do it maybe once a month and send in a new shipment once a month, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's whatever interval works for them and their existing workflow. It depends on how fast they source items, depends on how quickly they can get them listed. And just to clarify, on eBay, they actually schedule their listings 3 weeks out. So they're not in drafts, because drafts are very unpredictable. So they schedule them out 3 weeks. So that gives us time to receive them. And then once we receive them, we push them live to avoid that extra fee. So that eBay charges if you just let your items go scheduled. So and in Poshmark, it's a slightly different process. But that's essentially the idea is you will hold your items not for sale from the time that you get them up to the time that you get them to us. And typically that time frame is no more than about a week-ish, depending on where you live in the country.
Okay, now I have a question. It might be kind of an off-the-wall question, but it pertains to what we're talking about. Now, at the end of the month or every month, because you guys do charge a pick and pack fee like Amazon does, and you guys also charge storage fees for the items sitting in your warehouse taking up space. So do you send them an invoice at the end of the month and say, hey, this is how much you owe us this month? Or is the money automatically deducted out of the sales every month? Like, could you explain that process? I'm just curious.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Every client is invoiced on a monthly basis for whatever activity occurred that previous month. So, and at the end of the month, whatever is in storage, that's what they're being charged for. So essentially every item that you have in storage, you'll have one free month of storage because you're not charged for storage in the same month that it sells. So yes, it's definitely an invoice system. And we've set it up exactly like eBay. So you'll get your invoice by the 8th of the month. You have a week to pay it. If you don't pay it, it'll be automatically charged to your credit card on file, and it's pretty seamless. And you know, if you don't want to do anything for it, you don't have to. But that's the way it's operating. We don't take it out of your proceeds or anything like that.
Okay, I was just curious. So it's basically it's similar. Like if I had a storage unit somewhere at Easy Storage location, I would pay a monthly fee for that storage locker every month anyway. So you're basically going to get an invoice every month that say, hey, this is what's going on with your account, and you would send them an invoice. Okay, I was just curious how that works.
And I just want to share also, Jeff, if you went to our website, eblissreseller.com, we have a pricing calculator on there where you could estimate if you wanted to explore using us. We ask three things. How many items would you have under management? Have stored with us? How many items do you anticipate to send in each month? And how many do you expect to have sold each month? So it'll give you a good estimate of what the cost is. And it's comparable to, I mean, you could do the math and you could figure out exactly if your business could support that.
Okay, cool. Now I have another question for you. What are some of the you guys just recently expanded and got a second storage, not storage locker, but you got a second warehouse recently. So what is like some of your all's plans that you have for your business, maybe in the next 6 months or a year down the road, as far as your reselling business and as far as eBliss goes? I mean, what you guys are going to be expanding, possibly maybe getting a third warehouse. How big is the square footage of the warehouse that you recently got? Like how many new clients could you potentially take, you think?
Well, that depends on the client size, but it's 4,000 square feet. So it's double what we had before. Our existing business probably going to have that stay stable for the time being. We don't anticipate growing that at this time, but we would like to fill up this warehouse as soon as possible and then see about getting another one.
Yeah, we estimate we could probably, based on average size, store close to 50,000 items in our expansion phase, which we're in now. How many clients is that? It all depends on how many items each client has. And as Lori mentioned, I would say, I would love for this to be the case within 9 months to a year. We're going to have this warehouse filled, and then we'll look to expand it to another maybe 5,000 to 10,000 square feet and replicate exactly what we have here.
Yeah. How many employees do you guys currently have working for you in your business? I'm just curious.
I think we have 4 at the moment.
Yeah, we're in the process of bringing another person in, and just to share with that's a good point. We prior to eBliss, we had 5 part-time, 2 full-time people, and 3 part-time employees helping us with prepping and all stuff just on our reselling business alone. What we're doing is any new hire that we bring on, we have them work on our reselling side of the business for quite some time to understand all the ins and outs of learning eBay, especially, and then we would move them over to eBliss. So right now on eBliss, we have 3 people, 2 full-time, 1 part-time, and they help with the onboarding and the receiving and the shipping. So that we're thankful for that, because that is a component that is hard. It's very difficult for people to manage the employees and hiring and keeping that intact.
Okay, awesome. I wanted to say hello to the ATL Flipper stop by, and we have Hollywood Reseller is here. He asked a question. He wants to know, do you have a minimum amount of items that you would need to send in on the first shipment? So you guys talked earlier, I think you said that it was about 500 items at least. Do you guys have a minimum of a certain number of items that you would need to get started for onboarding?
Yeah, 500 is about the average client, give or take, that we have right now. But we do like to have a minimum of about 200, 250. I mean, it has to be a decent size to get started in terms of the business supporting us doing that, the work for them. That's what we have found. We have found that clients who only have like 50 items listed, they just don't have the volume to support having a third party do this work for them. So it's about 200, and plus there are costs and startup expenses involved in getting anybody on board, which we bear. So it has to make sense. It's about 200, 250, but every case is individual. That's why we like to talk to our client, potential clients ahead of time, just to find out what their goals are. Because if they're going to bring on a whole bunch of, items right away, just because they don't have them right now listed, that wouldn't necessarily make it so that they couldn't, use our services.
Okay, cool. I have a question for you guys, because I was watching another one of your previous interviews and live streams, and both of you guys used to work together. Were you guys co-workers at one time? Is that how you met? And when you guys were working in the corporate world, talk to me about how you were able to transition from having a full-time job to becoming a full-time reseller. Because if somebody is in a similar situation and they're like, man, I don't know if it's a dead-end job, but I'm not happy at my current endeavor, whatever it is. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're working at McDonald's or you're working in a factory. If you're at a job and you're not happy and you don't want to be there, what would you give them as far as a path where they're saying, hey, this is my current endeavors. I'm working my full-time job. Maybe I've been there for 5 or 10 years, and I want to trend to be a full-time reseller. What stepping stools, what type of little things will they need to do to transition to do that? Yeah,
well, we actually met at work originally 30 years ago at Sears. We both worked there for about 5 years. And then we actually worked together again in Northwestern Mutual for a couple years before we moved here, and while we worked here. But it was helpful because when Dave started his reselling business, I was still working full time, and so I was basically bringing home the butter or the bacon or whatever. That I was having the majority of the income, and then he built it while during the time. In order to, you don't want to jump in?
No, you're right. I mean, Lori's correct. There is a big leap of faith, but you need to be very financially prudent, knowing that you have to know your numbers, like we discussed earlier. You need to know your sell-through rate on a lot of your items. The magic number I always say is 1,000 items. If you have 1,000 listings up and the average selling price is $40, you could most likely have a good, solid, predictable monthly income off of that. Now, is that good enough for a couple or maybe just one person? That's up to you to decide. So the key is to really source smart, source well, and get that stuff up and listed. And that's the exciting part about that, because we want to enable people to get past that plateau of, I'm only at 500 listings. I'm one person. I'm part-time. I have another job. I'm done. I'm tapped out. I hit my ceiling. We want people to get to the next level if they want to. And you just have to know your numbers, and you have to source well and get listings. It's as simple as that. It's a numbers game, but it takes time. It really takes time. I don't think you could become a full-time reseller within a couple months or even 6 months. I would say a year plus to figure out your mistakes and find your sweet spot.
Right. And also just to add to that, I mean, you almost have to plan it out too, especially if you already have a job. I mean, you obviously still have an income, Hopefully it's sufficient for your needs, and just plan it out, like kind of working backwards based on where you want to be. And just make sure that, once you make that transition, that they always say, like, it's like being in a boat, you want to be as close to that dock as possible before you jump off that boat. And so you need to do everything you can financially to make sure you're secure when you finally do make that transition. Either that, or you can just make it slowly over time. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I can, I don't need this job anymore because I've built this to the point where it's sufficient for me. But eBliss can help with that a lot, because you can focus on growing your business versus having to ship and store all your stuff. And there's no limit either. So if your business requires 3,000, 4,000 items to provide that income that you are replacing, if you can't store that stuff in your house, then how are you going to make that happen? You have to put it someplace else. So, that would be our advice there.
Yeah, I always think that when you're starting something like this, I think it's going to be like a long-term play. Like, it may be 2-3 years down the road to get there, because you have to grow up. Not you grow up as a person, but I'm saying you have to grow and scale your business to the point where you have enough active items listed in your store, where you can have predictable sales every week, every month, to where hey, now I'm good, I can cover my expenses. And also simultaneously, you're getting yourself out of debt, maybe paying off credit card bills. Maybe you don't, you're getting your car paid off, so you don't have car payments and things like that. We had a question in the chat from the ATL Flipper. He was asking about looking for a space, if possibly if he wanted to get a warehouse or was looking for a storage space. Did you have any advice for him or someone in his situation if he's potentially looking for a space?
Well, I don't know what the real estate market is like down there, but up here, it's a commercial real estate is kind of different than personal real estate. They have different ways of charging for fees and this and that. And the other thing is, usually you can't, typically a 3-year lease is the minimum they want to give you. So you have to really say, hey, I'm going to be in this for the long haul, and make sure it's going to work. And also just not to find something that's too big for you. Because this is the thing, when you get a warehouse space, it's most likely always going to be more than you need at that time. You're going to grow into it, especially if you have to stay there for 3 years. That's the hard part, because your business probably doesn't support what a full warehouse would actually yield you. So that's the tricky part. So the long-term component, and then like you were mentioning before, all of the extraneous expenses, and just to let you know, usually everything inside the unit you're responsible for. So the plumbing breaks. It's not the lease. That's what we have found. The leases for commercial spaces are very different than leases for personal spaces. So the landlord's not responsible for everything. So you have to really read that lease very carefully and make sure you understand it before you sign it. That's and don't be afraid to go back and say, I don't want this, or this doesn't make sense, or whatever. Speak for yourself. So.
You kind of get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm either going to have to use my basement. Here in Florida, we don't have basements, or you're going to have a shed in the backyard, or you're going to have to get a storage unit. So, or maybe you have a garage. But at some point in time, you're going to run, if you keep growing and scaling your business, you're going to run out of space. So, hey, we've had you guys on the show today for about an hour. I greatly appreciate you guys coming on and hanging out with me today. I want to give a shout out to a few people here. Miscellaneous by Marcy says, thank you guys, Lori and Dave, for giving me my life and freedom back. We have reseller Niche Mo is in here. He says, hey, I had several warehouse spaces myself. Finding something under 2,500 square foot at a good rate is tough. And everything is really exploding. Even to rent something right now is very expensive. So go ahead and tell everybody where they can come find you guys at. I have your links down below to your website, your Instagram, and your YouTube page. So go ahead and tell them how they can go ahead and get a hold of you and contact you. Should they send you a DM on Instagram, or how should they go ahead and reach out to you if they want to contact you guys and find out more about your business? Because I'm sure they may have 99 questions that we can't cover in 30, 45 minutes,
Yeah, we're on YouTube as well. You could look up eBliss Reseller Solutions on YouTube. You can contact us through there. We have our own website, eblissreseller.com. And then also on Instagram, it's eBliss Reseller Solutions. Feel free to send us a DM. We could get that going. And I just want to also share this. One of the, this is all about, our service is all about freedom and getting your time back. I just want to share, Sebastian Pilch has been on your show twice under Resell Junkie is his Instagram and also YouTube. But he and his wife and their 1.5-year-old son are going to be traveling in a van for the next year. And we've partnered with them. So I think it's going to be a good follow for those that follow you to subscribe to their channels. It's Sebi and Shai, and they're on YouTube and they're also on Instagram. And their goal is they want to be free digital nomads. And the reason why we're partnering with them is I spoke to Sebastian months ago and just about reselling in general. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to sell all my inventory. I'm done with reselling because I want to travel. And I said, no, I said, don't do that. You have such a skill. So they're working with us and they're going to be traveling the country in a van. They're going to be thrifting. They're going to be like American pickers, essentially. And with the 1.5-year-old living in a van full time. So it could be very interesting. And he promises this is not going to be glamorized. So get out there and subscribe to Sebi and Shai. Follow them. Very entertaining, very smart couple. And they're van lifers. They're RVers traveling the country and living the freedom. And we're glad to be partnering with them so they could get their dream going.
Yeah, for sure. I've been following them on Instagram and I'm subscribed to their YouTube channel. I'll drop the link down below in the comments section. So go ahead and give us your final thoughts and then we'll let you go. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and talk to me and our audience today.
I just think our final thoughts are simple. Just restore the joy in reselling if you don't have it. If your reselling business is a grind and if it feels like a job, find a way to delegate, find a way to restore that joy that you originally had. And the freedom that the reselling business provides you is something many people don't understand, but those that do understand it don't want to relinquish it. I think it's a skill, it's a talent, it's a passion they have. So stick with it. Have passion in what you do. If you want to grow. If you don't, that's fine. But always have that joy in what you're doing as a reseller.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on and hanging out with me today. We appreciate you guys. And hopefully we'll see you guys back here tomorrow. I'll have another guest on tomorrow, I believe 4 o'clock Eastern. So if you guys want to come back tomorrow and come hang out, if you have any other questions or comments or concerns, feel free to reach out to them. I have their links in the description down below. If you have any more questions about growing or scaling your business, or if you have questions about onboarding with Evolus Reseller Solutions, you can reach out to them. All their contacts and links are down below in the description. So thank you guys for coming on and hanging out with me today. And I'll talk to you again soon, right? Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.